What's up, friends? It's me, your boy Max Mogren, reporting live for you from beautiful Alpine, Wyoming. This is Wake Up Wyoming for March 20th, 2018. Big news tonight at the Pink Garter Theater for people in the area. Dirtbag, the legend of Fred Becky, is playing tonight, 7 p.m. at the Pink Garter Theater. So do stop by if you feel so inclined. A great movie about a brilliant writer, a brilliant pioneering climber, and bona fide dirtbag, the one and only Fred Becky. We got no viewers. Let me know if you can see this show here. We got 19 viewers. What's up? Again, tonight at the Pink Garter, Dirtbag, the legend of Fred Becky. If you're not familiar with Fred Becky, rest in peace, Fred, one of the bona fide pioneers of climbing. And arguably in the world today, Fred Becky provides a pretty good example of one way you can disengage from the system, which is by dropping out entirely, becoming a so-called dirtbag, getting off the grid, getting out into nature, reconnecting with the natural resonant frequencies of planet Earth, grounding out, as they say. Nothing more important these days than, disengaging from the system as much as possible. So do check that out. We got a big show today. As usual, we are looking at the Jackson Hole Daily to get us going today. If you're wondering what's going on in the background there, I got a project going on. After watching an excellent interview yesterday between Claudia Stauber and Elana Freeland, I am getting serious about building an electromagnetically shielded bedroom in my office here, studio here. Because, wow, we live in a world that is severely polluted, most notably in the electromagnetic sense. April Boso likes my hat. Thanks. I wanted to wear something that would make me look authoritarian today, like somebody that's got some real power there. So that's what we're going for. Thank you all for tuning in. Let's get into it. Top story today. Well, shoot, I lost it. 74% of Americans believe the deep state is running the country, coming from our dear friend Tyler Durden over there at Zero Hedge. And I'm going to go into the Jackson Hole Daily briefly. Again, this paper services the wealthiest county per capita in North America, where the billionaires come to play for a few short weeks out of the year at their multi-million-dollar log cabins, while the people that actually live and work here can't afford to actually live here. But they sure do get to work a lot at shitty, low-paying jobs catering to the billionaires. But interestingly, here in the opinion section, the mainstream media just shouting the word conspiracy continuously. The mainstream media pundits gladly conspiracy theorists. Well, they don't even theorize. They just make these blunt, blatant statements about conspiracies, but only in regards to Russia, Putin's reelection, and perhaps the Trump administration's collusion with Russia to affect the election results. Never mind the fact that the elections are completely fraudulent in this country and have been for a long time. If you don't believe me, head on over to Sane Progressive's Election Fraud Watch 2016.wordpress.com to check it out. But let's get into this article briefly. This is by Leonid Bershidsky at the Washington Post. Putin, hawkish cronies got the result they wanted. Okay? Again, no shortage of mainstream pundits screaming conspiracy, but only in regards to Russia. The Russian presidential election that took place Sunday was a fake one, but its outcome is real enough. It clearly demonstrated that the majority of Russians accept the rules imposed on them by President Vladimir Putin. That in itself is a kind of democratic choice, with clear implications for Putin's enemies inside and outside Russia. The election was fake because Putin's most vocal and most politically talented rival, so says the Washington Post, Alexei Navalny, wasn't allowed to run because of a trumped-up criminal conviction. Sounds kind of like here in the U.S., where, well, prime examples, in the previous election, Ron Paul booted out by the Republican Party. In the most recent 2016 election, Bernie Sanders, who had by far the support of the Democratic Party, booted out of his own primary in a rigged election. It was fake because the opposing candidates were handpicked by the Kremlin, and because the majority of Russian media are under direct or indirect Kremlin control. Okay, we have the same sort of situation here. Handpicked candidates selected, giving us the Pepsi versus Coke style of democracy. And as far as the media being under direct control or indirect control of the Kremlin, we have the same thing here in the U.S. Check out Operation Mockingbird by the CIA. It was also fake because of fierce administrative pressure on Russians' millions of government-dependent voters, public servants, students, workers at state-controlled enterprises to turn out, and because at many polling stations, especially those where the fragile Russian opposition had no observers, ballot boxes were stuffed. Okay, we have the same sort of situation here in the U.S. Now, again, I don't think that the Russians are running a better country than we are, but you know, the mainstream media is so quick to call conspiracy on the Russian election, but they'll never take a real solid look at elections in our own country. Similar perspective here in the other opinion piece. Follow the money to Russian oligarchs living large in the U.S. Right? That's a favorite slogan of independent, concerned citizens. Follow the money. Well, the mainstream media is going to shout out follow the money, but only when it comes to Russian oligarchs. The poisoning of a Russian ex-spy in the English countryside has roused Britons to two truths. Russian President Vladimir Putin, who was re-elected Sunday in a landslide everyone was expecting, regards their country as an easy mark, right? That's implying that Russia poisoned these people. It hasn't been confirmed, hasn't been proven, and it sounds like a conspiracy theory coming from Froma Harrop, an opinion columnist. But it's also an extremely pleasant place for his oligarchs to live, that being Britain. Americans take note. It goes on and on, and it goes on and on. A lot of fear-mongering about how the Russian hackers not only invaded our election, but they invaded our water and electric systems, nuclear power plants included. So fear-mongering, again, alluding to some grand conspiracy by the Russians to not only hack our elections, but our nuclear power plants. It's total fear-mongering, and it's conspiracy theorism at its worst because there really is no proof of these things. Fanita Daly has a good comment there. Mainstream media are corrupted themselves. That is why they try to cover up the truth and news not to come out to the public, right? Good point. Good point. Jerry Stock says, this guy is full of it. Jerry, what's the problem, bro? You got to give me some constructive criticism. Josh Andres chiming in, really, Jerry, he just reads the headlines and has opinion on all the lies. Indeed, I do. Thank you, Josh. Moving along here. So again, you know, the conspiracies, the mainstream media, happy to point out conspiracies when they involve the Russians, when they involve Trump, Putin's re-election campaign. But despite the fact that the mainstream media never covers actual conspiracies actually taking place in this country, 74% of Americans believe the deep state is running our country. For the past 2 years, the long-running narrative, at least that promulgated by the mainstream media, which continues to explain away Hillary Clinton's loss to Donald Trump, is that Americans had fallen for a massive, long-running fake news scam, in part aided and abetted by the likes of Facebook. Little aside here, Facebook in the crosshairs lately. Huge losses in the stock market, down about 12% over the last 2 days. This fake news scam, which boosted Trump's popularity at the expense of Hillary's, is part of some giant Russian collusion conspiracy theory between the Trump campaign and the Kremlin, which Mueller was supposed to uncover, but has seemingly shifted to investigating obstruction, seemingly unable to find anything. But what if that entire narrative is dead wrong? What if Americans have become so skeptical in the government process and structure, they never needed a fake news boost to vote for an establishment outsider? According to a new poll, that's precisely the case because a supermajority of Americans believe the faction of unelected officials known as the deep state is orchestrating policy in Washington, D.C., and effectively running the nation. The Monmouth University Polling Institute found that no less than 74% of Americans believe in a deep state when it is described as a collection of unelected officials running policy. Only 21% do not believe this kind of group exists. As a result of countless conspiracy theories being proven as facts in recent years, chief among which the Edward Snowden's revelations which exposed the NSA as nothing short of Big Brother, and the WikiLeaks disclosures, which revealed how the Democratic Party colluded against Bernie Sanders to promote Clinton's candidacy, and countless other such examples. Fully 8 in 10 Americans believe that the U.S. government currently monitors or spies on the activities of American citizens, including a majority, 53%, who say this activity is widespread, and another 29% who say such monitoring happens but is not widespread. Just 14% say this monitoring does not happen at all. Shockingly, there were no substantial partisan differences in these results. Okay, it goes on and on. What is even more surprising is that the poll found that 7 out of 10 Americans polled in each political group, not just Republicans, but Democrats and independents as well, believe in a deep state. The statistical analysis goes on and on. I'll copy and paste that into the comments so you can check it out at your leisure if you feel so inclined. Thank you all for tuning in. So I'm going to paste that in. There it goes. I'm glad you all are tuned in. How many viewers do we have today? 54 viewers. Good enough for me. Again, if you want evidence that the American election was rigged, could you check Election Fraud Watch 2016 by our dear friend Debbie over there at Sane Progressive. She lays it out. She studied this issue to a T. And if you want to know how the mainstream media responds to somebody who actually stands up and expresses an opinion, well, you have to look no further than our friends, well, not friends, I'm being sarcastic, at the BBC, Newsweek, and the Washington Post, who are slandering this fine young man, Trayon White Sr., who is a council maker, a legislator in Washington, D.C., who made a video about weather modification, about climate control. And it was a short little video. It didn't really say much. Here it is.
Man, it's just out of nowhere this morning, man. Y'all better pay attention to this climate control, man. This climate manipulation. And DC keep talking about we're a resilient city. And that's a model based off the Rothschilds controlling the climate to create natural disasters they can pay for in their own cities, man. Be careful.
Okay, so there's the video. That's what he said. He said, it's snowing here in D.C., and he's driving in traffic. Probably shouldn't be making a video while he's driving, but whatever. And he says, be careful, because the Rothschilds are controlling the weather, and they have this Resilient Cities initiative where they're able to control city governments through this guise of protecting them from natural disasters. Okay, well, those comments were construed by the mainstream as anti-Semitic comments, just because he mentioned the Rothschilds. Utterly absurd. But it's great to see somebody actually speaking up about the widespread climate manipulation, especially somebody in the halls of power in D.C. So big thanks to Trayon White Sr. for speaking up. We appreciate you, brother, and you are not alone. Right? You are not alone in this, and it's, you know, this just shows you how the mainstream media works. You know, he said one thing, and it didn't even mention Jewish people. There was nothing hateful about it, yet his comments decried as anti-Semitic. Notably, this guy also said the Jewish family, the Rothschilds, doesn't really matter that they're Jewish. It just matters that they're multi-trillionaires that have controlled the global financial system for centuries. He's saying they don't just control the weather, they control the government and the World Bank too, which is arguably true. Of course, there are other players in play there in the global oligarchy, but the Rothschilds, big players there. Washington Post chiming in on it too. DC lawmaker said Rothschilds control the climate, also said they control the federal government. This is great. This guy's actually taken this to the halls of power.
Our local university, I think it's very important that we get behind you and support you. I guess one of the things I'm in question about was that there's this whole concept with the Rothschilds, control the World Bank, as we all know, infusing dollars into major cities. They really pretty much control the federal government. Now they have this concept called resilient cities, in which they are using their money and influence into local cities. How does this influence this? Because it's really about infrastructure and climate control. What does this have to do with UDC? If they put money into UDC, what's the relationship between Rothschilds and the Rockefellers.
Okay, so there he is questioning. This is D.C. City Council. He's a council member asking the rest of the council how this Resilient Cities initiative works, how the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and other prominent oligarch deep state families, again, 74% of Americans believe a deep state is running the show here. He's just asking a question there, and they paint him out like it's an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. White also contended that the Rothschilds, a European business dining, frequent subject of anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, control the World Bank and the federal government, making those remarks during a February 27th gathering of top officials, including the mayor of D.C. So this is great that this guy's out there actually trying to make a difference. So we salute you, Trayon White Sr. Thank you so much for keeping it real out there in D.C. If you want to follow him on Facebook, check him out right here. Facebook.com/Trayon.White. I'm going to paste his link in there because why not? Again, I don't know everything about this guy's politics, but it's cool to have somebody speaking out on these sorts of topics. If you want to know more about the weather war, if you want to know more about climate control, weather modification, geoengineering, go over and visit our friends Jim Lee and Dominique Marama at weathermodificationhistory.com. Okay, it's great stuff. I'm pasting that one in too. You can find out all sorts of stuff, especially by looking at their timeline history and their news gallery, which has mainstream news going back over 100 years, literally hundreds of articles here going back over 100 years in really reputable sources like Popular Science and the Sydney Morning Herald, Popular Mechanics, the Spoken, all over the place on these topics. Most notably, back in the 1940s, they were already talking about using the weather as a weapon, and it was done, confirmed back in the 70s. So now you know. Moving on to our next story here today, David Cocorico Sedano, who's a regular viewer of the show, had a great comment here. Trump talks up fighting opioids. Trump proposing the death penalty for people who are pushing opioids on the planet, on the American populace. And David with a great comment there with this photo. Funding cuts, you mean spending billions guarding big pharmaceuticals' opium in Afghanistan? How about you stop being big pharmaceuticals' muscle and have them guard their own fields? Very good point there from David Cocorico Sedano. Thank you so much, David, for your efforts to help people wake up to the disturbing reality that our unelected deep state oligarchs have foisted upon us. And I'm going to take this back to the local level because it's funny. Here in today's Jackson Hole Daily, they're talking about a new bill addressing assault and opioids. Okay, new bills addressing assault and opioids. From an opioid task force to failed attempts to institute Medicaid work requirements, the 64th Wyoming legislature examined a number of health-related bills over the last month. Senate President Eli Bebout, a Riverton Republican, told the Star Trib he was shifting his focus to getting out ahead of the opioid crisis sweeping parts of the nation. He sponsored a bill that passed both chambers and will establish an opioid addiction task force. The group, which will consist of lawmakers, physicians, pharmacists, law enforcement, and others, will examine a broad range of topics. Let's see here. Including the use of opioid antagonists like naloxone and the use of alternative pain management treatments, perhaps like marijuana. Maybe we should legalize that here in Wyoming. It goes on and on. But here's a little hint for the Wyoming state legislature. If the Wyoming state legislature wants to get tough on opioids, maybe, just maybe, they should stop giving money, literally millions of dollars, to a company that manufactures opioids, amphetamines, morphine, which is an opioid, and cocaine in Powell, Wyoming, or Cody, Wyoming. Real talk here. Cody Laboratories, approved for an $11 million low-interest loan from the state of Wyoming last year, may be allowed to borrow $23 million instead. Okay, this on top of a few years ago, according to the Billings Gazette, when Cody Laboratories Incorporated, which produces opioids, amphetamines and cocaine, I'll prove that to you in just a second, was given, not loaned, but given $2.5 million. Okay, this is confirmed by the Wyoming Business Council. Klessens, who's the head of Forward Cody, says he met with Lanet CEO. Lanet is a Pennsylvania-based multi-million, almost billion-dollar pharmaceutical company. He met with the Atlanta CEO Arthur Bedrosian 2 years ago, and Bedrosian was basically saying, show me some love. Show me that the state of Wyoming wants this. Some of that love came in 2015 when Forward Cody, that's a local organization for economic growth, secured $2.5 million in public funds from the Wyoming Business Council to help build an 11,000 square foot warehouse it leases to Cody Labs in North Cody. Okay, so there's the state of Wyoming giving them $2.5 billion, giving $2.5 million to opioid manufacturers back in 2015. Now they're giving them a low interest loan for $23 million. Why are they giving them so much money when this company is already filthy rich? A subsidiary of the Philadelphia-based Atlantic company, Cody Labs has already started building a new production facility on Cody's northern edge. It will join the company's current warehouse, which was also built with state help. That's right, $2.5 million of Wyoming state funds going to the opioid producers. What do they do there? Opit said they're planning these changes more than doubled the facility's estimated production capacity of materials like active pharmaceutical ingredients, APIs, from 11 to 25 metric tons per year. Okay, we're going to look at what they actually produce here, straight from their website, and what these drugs actually do. The company currently produces around 5 metric tons of product. So they want to increase from producing 5 metric tons of these dangerous pharmaceuticals to 25 metric tons with state funding help. Cody Labs is one of only 7 U.S. facilities licensed to import raw poppy straw. What does that mean? That means heroin. That means opium, which is then turned into various pain-killing medications. Blah, blah, blah. It goes on and on. And important to note here, Lanet revenues during the tenure of the CEO from 2002 until now, Lanet revenues have grown by a factor of 25, climbing from $25 million in fiscal year 2002 to $637 million in the past year. Again, why is a company based out of Pennsylvania with hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue from pharmaceutical drugs being given low-interest loans from Wyoming when Wyoming allegedly cares about this opioid crisis? A couple great comments here I want to read. Kay Chandler, idea, let's let the drug company build their own building. They have profited $300 million last year. I think they can afford it. We take the loan money, invest in Wyoming, build a treatment center in every community to combat the painkiller epidemic that this company contributes to. Instead, we cut Department of Health budget by hundreds of millions. Wise up, Wyoming. Great point there, Kate Chandler. And Dewey V with another great comment, sarcastically, of course. You have no idea how thrilled I am that Wyoming taxpayers are subsidizing a Philadelphia maker of opioids, especially a company that had an after-tax, after-debt service profit of nearly $300 million last year. Okay? Again, what do they make at this lab? What is the state of Wyoming funding over there at Cody Laboratories, a subsidiary of the Lanet Pharmaceutical Company, which is a shady business, who has been accused of upping the prices of some of their medications by as much as 800% recently? Well, they lay it out here. Pharmaceutical ingredients. What do they produce? Cocaine hydrochloride, lisdex, amphetamine, dimesylate. It goes on and on. Well, I brought up all these different drugs. Cocaine hydrochloride. Cocaine hydrochloride is an alkaloid ester derived extracted from the leaves of plants, including coca. Okay, it's cocaine. They're producing cocaine. It goes on and on. You don't believe me? You can read this for yourself. Just Google cocaine hydrochloride. The second listed drug that's in development there is lisdexamphetamine dimesylate, used to treat attention deficit disorder. Okay, key word here is amphetamine. Okay, they're making amphetamines there. Great. What else are they making there? They're making methylphenadiate hydrochloride. Drug warning. Okay, what is it? What is it? It's a mild central nervous system stimulant used for people with ADHD, other things like that. So it's another stimulant. They use it for attention deficit disorders and narcolepsy. Okay, so this is another stimulant used for children with ADD. They make over there in Cody with Wyoming funds, they make hydrocodone bitartrate. What's that? Hydrocodone is used to relieve severe pain. Hydrocodone belongs in the class of drugs known as opioid analgesics. Okay, so that's an opioid painkiller. Another one they make over there in Cody is hydromorphone hydrochloride. We know what this is. Hydromorphone hydrochloride extended release tablets expose patients and other users to the risks of opioid addiction, abuse, and misuse, which can lead to overdose and death. Accidental ingestion of even one dose of hydromorphone hydrochloride extended release tablets, especially in children, can result in a fatal overdose of hydromorphine. Okay, so there you go. Another opioid painkiller produced with your tax dollars, Wyoming, over there in Cody. Yeah, give them $29 million. I'm sure they need it. Another drug they're making there, morphine sulfate. Obviously, that is another opioid painkiller. Okay. Risks of medication errors, addiction, abuse, and misuse, life-threatening respiratory depression, accidental ingestion, neonatal opioid withdrawal syndrome, and risk from concomitant use with benzodiazepines and other central nervous system depressants. Okay, it's another opioid. So there's where your tax dollars are going there in the midst of, Trump's threats to kill drug dealers, to have the death penalty on the line for drug dealers. The state of Wyoming task force cracking down on opioids, but at the same time, they're literally funding the people creating these drugs legally. Moving along, what else do we got in the headlines here today? Let me just check my screen here right quick. We covered the mainstream media pundits screaming conspiracy. We covered the opioid crisis. We covered how the mainstream media goes after anybody that mentions the deep state, how just simply mentioning the Rothschild banking cartel, it gets a DC lawmaker labeled as anti-Semitic. And now we are on to Philip K. Dick's Electric Dreams episode, okay? This is a really great show. Safe and sound here. I'll bring up this one. The reason I'm bringing this up, a friend mentioned it to me a few days ago, and I watched it, and wow, it was a disturbing show, showcasing an all too real dystopian future that we kind of seem to be backsliding into. And I'm going to bring that up for a couple reasons. Because lately, with the Austin bombings, right, horrible situation down there in Austin, Texas, somebody serial bombing allegedly, and then obviously the Parkland, Florida shooting, big calls for new, gun control measures, big calls for changes, like arming teachers, putting more guards at schools, monitoring more people, taking people's guns away preemptively, which we saw recently in Florida. And this show, wow, really good show, really thought-provoking. If you're not familiar with Philip K. Dick's work, he's the guy that wrote Blade Runner and Minority Report, but he didn't really have any success in his life. He died in 1982. Yet this guy was so prescient that he wrote science fiction that is rather pertinent today. Sunday's episode of Electric Dreams was a warning to neo-Luddites, hippies, and anti-technology conspiracy theorists everywhere. Accept and adapt to Big Brother's latest gadget, or else. I'll give you the basic rundown. Teenage Foster and her political mom have a year-long Eastern pass out of the anti-tech bubbles and into the device-dependent, high-security, modern world on the East Coast of what used to be the United States. Okay, in this dystopian future, people had a choice. They could move to these bubbles on the West Coast where they were more or less free, and then the rest of the country was turned into this dystopian surveillance state. Mom is there to fight the fake news that claims that bubbles have been sending terrorists across the divide to kill Easterners. Is it true, or just a handy excuse to get Easterners to submit the corporate-controlled to the corporate-controlled monitoring technology they call DEX? It seems like no one's ever seen a terrorist attack except on TV. It's kind of like the world we live in today already. Foster, however, wants a Dex. That's the daughter in the show. Badly because all the teenagers have one. It gets her into school without being frisked. It helps her do her homework, and it keeps her safe, or so says the company, right? This girl faces social pressure at the school. She can't do her homework without one of these little wrist computer things, like a futuristic smartphone and tracking device. Also, Ethan, the tech support guy from Dex, is her only friend in school, where she's called the terrorist and set up for humiliation by the other kids. This guy, Ethan, brainwashes her, manipulates her, and has her turn against her own mother. And her mother gets accused. Her mother, who's a prominent politician, that's her mother there, gets locked up on charges of a conspiracy to blow up her school using her brainwashed daughter as a bomb carrier. But the whole situation, really disturbing. I highly recommend you check out this show if you want to see, a glimpse into science fiction and the world that we could live in if we're not careful. This guy, Philip K. Dick, I'm not super tuned up on his whole past. I don't know if this guy was like a legit revolutionary or what, but a heck of a science fiction writer. And he's got some great quotes here. Also, interestingly, when I was in LA working with Michael C. Rupert, I spent some time living in an old Airstream trailer that Philip K. Dick used to live in. It was parked at my buddy Doug Lewis's house in his backyard. So I actually, for a time there, lived in the same trailer this guy lived in at the time when he wrote the movie Blade Runner, or rather the short story that became Blade Runner. But there's some great quotes here from Philip K. Dick that I'm going to read to you. Reality is that which, when you stop believing in it, doesn't go away. The basic tool for the manipulation of reality is the manipulation of words. If you can control the meaning of words, you can control the people who must use the words. You would have to kill me and prop me up in the seat of the car with a smile painted on my face to get me to go near Hollywood. Sometimes to go insane is the appropriate response to the world. The most dangerous kind of person is one who is afraid of his own shadow, right? It's kind of the world we live in today, where we're perpetually terrorized by the government and the mainstream media. What a tragic realm this is, he reflected. Those down here are prisoners, and the ultimate tragedy is that they don't know it. They think they are free because they have never been free, and they do not understand what it means. For every person, a sentence, a series of words exists that can destroy them. There also exists a series of words that can heal them. You may not get the second, but you can be sure of getting the first, right? We see that every day in the mainstream too. That's why I do what I do. What's up, Cherry Wallace? I'm glad you like the hat. I'm trying to look more reputable and professional today, so I figured I'd put on a captain's hat. Seems to be working so far. We got 57 viewers. The authorities have become as psychotic as the people they hunted. The authorities wanted to lock up anyone who wasn't a clone of the establishment. The authorities were full of hate. So if you want to check out an interesting show, it's over there on Amazon. Whatever, Amazon sucks, but Safe and Sound, episode 6 of Philip K. Dick's Electric Dreams. Pretty interesting, thought-provoking, disturbing television show. Moving on here. Cryptocurrencies. Let's see what's going on in the world of cryptos briefly. Oh, we're on the rise once again. Crazy volatility. Total market cap up about $12 billion from where it was not long ago. And we're seeing that reflected in rises across the boards in the crypto realm. What's going to happen? I don't know. Some of these things are scams. Some of them are here to stay. Watch out for Ripple. That's a tool of the banks. And we're moving on. Interestingly, also noted in the paper here today, they talked about this self-driving car killed a pedestrian in Arizona, okay? Sad to see that. Condolences to the person who died. That's a first, as far as I know, in the United States. Interestingly, though, coming from Scientific American, published just a few days ago, pretty timely, intelligent to a fault. When AI screws up, you might still be to blame, right? The liability issues surrounding these self-driving cars. If you are in a self-driving car and you hit somebody, who's at fault. You know what I mean? Andy Palskill chiming in. You don't know Ripple. Andy, let me know your thoughts on Ripple. You know, when I go to the Ripple website, I see that the Ripple people have secured a healthy amount of their coins. I see they have basically an unlimited number that they can produce, and that they're working closely with banks. I can prove that to you just by going to their website. So, you know, the whole point of the cryptocurrencies is to get rid of the big banks, to have a trustless environment, decentralized for transactions and contracts. But you can see that Ripple right here on the front page of their website. They're working with the RBC, the Bank of Tokyo, Santander, Standard Chartered, Westpac, Credit Agricole, that's French, American Express, MoneyGram, Axis Bank, SBI, SEB, BMO, and the list goes on and on. So, in my opinion, Ripple is working with the big banks. There's some more banks that Ripple is working with. Kind of contradicts the stated purpose of the cryptocurrencies if you are partnering with the big banks all over the world. So that's my take on Ripple, but you're welcome to your own opinion. I'm happy to discuss that with you, and we can try to come to a deeper understanding of the issue together. But that's my understanding of Ripple at the moment. So let's see, moving along, what else is going on? The U.S. ambassador was called son of a dog by the Palestinian president. They got to pimp that in the paper to demonize the Palestinians while they are being genocided by the Israelis. Again, we covered in the opinion section how the mainstream media pundits are so eager to yell conspiracy if it involves Russia in any way, yet they would never even consider the notion of conspiracies taking place in this country, despite the fact that 74% of Americans believe in a deep state. What else do we got going on in the paper? I'm just going to run through it real quick. Before we get into this disturbing issue out of China with the social credit issue, in the business section today, in the paper servicing the wealthiest county per capita in North America, of course, they're demonizing Facebook. But naturally demonizing Facebook, does that mean Mark Zuckerberg's going to jail? Does that mean Mark Zuckerberg's billions are going to get taken away from him? No, it probably means they're going to continue cracking down on independent media on Facebook. You know, I don't really like Facebook, but it's the place where I can build an audience of 55 viewers, which is better than I can do anywhere else. You know, despite the fact that we have a page here with 532,000 likes, we can only build an audience of 55 viewers. Why? I don't know. But, you know, maybe my show is that boring. Maybe I'm that poor at my job. But I would like to think that in addition to my failure as a news anchor, or my shortcomings, I should say, as a news anchor, perhaps there might be a little bit of censorship going on there when, you know, each one of these videos will have hundreds of likes, dozens, if not hundreds of shares, yet we never build an audience of more than 100 people anymore. Seems a little strange to me. But in the business section, they're demonizing Facebook, and I think that's just a ploy to go after the independent media. And then you got all sorts of fluff. This is a great article. Actually, it's an advertisement, The Greater Story of the Stearns Case by Mary Wendell Lampton, local story there. She's got some great points in here. Insist on journalism that brings you the story. Without it, you'll never know what to fight for. Great point there from Mary Wendell Lampton. If you are local here and you haven't checked this out yet, highly recommend you read this entire thing about the disturbing acquittal of Forrest Stearns in the trial for him abusing and murdering his own horse. Okay, really heartbreaking story there. And it sure looks like this guy intentionally killed his horse, and the court let him walk. He had this thing tied down for hours, struggling, and he killed the thing. And instead of any justice being served, he walked, and the local media, the local courts, let him off without any sort of punishment. Pretty messed up. So check that out if you're local here. A good example of how the mainstream media and the justice system fail to bring justice to the people. That's your Jackson Hole Daily for the day. Moving on to this China social credit system. This stuff is extremely disturbing, right? We just talked about the dystopian future portrayed in Philip K. Dick's Electric Dreams. Interesting choice of a title there for a show. Bear in mind, we're going to talk about that a little later with this interview with Claudia Stauber and Elana Freeland. But China will ban people with poor social credit from planes and trains. The new restrictions, which start in May, can last for up to a year. Starting in May, Chinese citizens who rank low on the country's burgeoning social credit system will be in danger of being banned from buying plane or train tickets for up to a year, according to statements recently released by the country's National Development and Reform Commission. With the social credit system, the Chinese government rates citizens based on things like criminal behavior and financial misdeeds, but also, this is where it gets really disturbing, on what they buy, say, and do. Those with low scores have to deal with penalties and restrictions. China has been working towards rolling out a full version of the system by 2020, but some early versions of it are already in place. The new travel restrictions are the latest addition to this growing patchwork of social engineering, which has already imposed punishments on more than 7 million citizens. And there's a broad range when it comes to who can be flagged. Citizens who have spread false information about terrorism, caused trouble on flights, used expired tickets, or were caught smoking on trains could all be banned, according to Reuters. Okay, people who have spread false information are targeted. Riddle me that. But the system, as it stands, is opaque. Citizens are seemingly just as likely to be flagged for minor infractions like leaving bikes parked in a footpath or issuing apologies that are deemed insincere as major credit defaulters like Gia. And it's often unclear whether they're on a blacklist in the first place, let alone what kind of recourse is available. Chinese government authorities clearly hope to create a reality in which bureaucratic pettiness could significantly limit people's rights. Maya Wang, a senior researcher at the nonprofit NGO Human Rights Watch, wrote in December. Okay, these social credit systems, really disturbing. Sounds like Germany's doing something similar. In the U.S., we certainly have the infrastructure in place to do that. Arguably, people are already targeted based on what they say online. Prime example right here at Wake Up Wyoming. I love all y'all 52 viewers. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's too bad we can't build a bigger audience, though, on a page with 532,000 likes. If you want a glimpse into the disturbing reality of social credit systems, I hate to pimp the mainstream too hard, but there's actually a really good video on Netflix on this topic that covers it too, from the television program Black Mirror, the episode Nosedive, where this woman, Lacey, lives in a seemingly pastel yet dystopian future where everybody's perpetually on their phone, and every time they interact with somebody, they rate them on a 1 through 5 star scale. And the higher your star ranking is, gets you, discounted prices. It gets you higher social status. If your rating is too low, you're not allowed into certain establishments. You're not allowed to rent a car, stuff like that. And so this episode really raises some great questions about the social credit ranking system. Do check it out if you're in the mood to kind of zone out and watch some dystopian future. Pretty disturbing. The episode is set in a world where people can rate each other from 1 to 5 stars for every interaction they have, and which can impact their socioeconomic status. Lacey is a young woman overly obsessed with her ratings. She finds an opportunity to elevate her ratings greatly and move into a more luxurious residence after being chosen by her popular childhood friend as the maid of honor for her wedding. Her obsession leads to several mishaps on her journey to the wedding that culminate in a rapid reduction in her ratings. Right? She goes from having like a 4.2 star rating to a 1.3 or something, and they throw her in jail for it eventually. Really disturbing future there. Kind of the, arguably the world we could be heading to with these systems like we see in China, perhaps now Germany coming online. Disturbing stuff. Other disturbing stuff coming online that I think we should all be aware of. Claudia Stauber, who's a brilliant activist, had Elana Freeland on her show yesterday, and they had a great 56-minute talk about 5G, HARP, chemtrails, cell towers, Gwen towers, fracking, and how you can protect yourself from these sorts of things. So do check that out if you feel so inclined. We shared it over at Wake Up News yesterday. I will paste it into the comments right now. So do check that out if you'd like. A great interview. Mark Perrotta saw some of that. What's up, Mark? Good to see you, sir. Greg Cheney chiming in there with some suggestions here. I'll say it again, Max. Have your show at the same time every day and more people will see it. The random nature of your broadcast makes it really tough to tune in. If I knew the time you would be on, I could tune in instead of just randomly catching you. Thanks, Greg. I appreciate that. Clayton Best has stated the same thing. And I tried to do that for a while, but, I got a lot of other things going on in life in addition to doing the show. So I feel you there. And I'll think about it. Moving on here, let's get into the scopes. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Again, do check out that interview with Claudia and Elana. If you want your scope read, lay it on me here. We're going to get into it. I'm a Taurus. Let's see how my day's going according to the stars. Again, I don't really buy into the horoscopes, but it's a fun way to interact with the audience at the end of the show here. 4-star day for me, Mr. Taurus. Ask yourself why someone else's actions irritate you. Communicate your feelings openly and diplomatically, and be open to a heavy conversation. At a certain point, you might become frustrated and some form of mutuality does not occur. Tonight, pay bills first, then do your thing. Tony Ramsey, thanks for tuning in. Looking for Virgo. Here we go. 4-star day. Reach out to a loved one at a distance. New priorities evolve in a discussion. Schedule some time or take a class or workshop. Then decide to plan a vacation and or indulge in whatever would open up your mind. Discussions will be enlightening. Ain't that the truth? Tonight, out among the clouds, Tony. David Coco Rico, looking for Cancer. David, thank you so much for posting that great commentary on that headline. You posted as an image on Facebook today. I think that was great. Hope you're doing well, brother. Hang in there with the medical stuff. 4-star day. Ask for more space in order to take the kind of stand you would like to. The problems that come up for you could stem from overindulgence. Make sure to take good care of yourself. A partner might be overly serious. Tonight, others count on you, but might not let you know. Okay, there we go. Gemini, Carrie Mark, looking for Gemini, the horoscopes. Indeed. Let's see what you got going here, Gemini. 5-star day. Listen to both sides of the story, whether you want to or not. Work on being as non-judgmental as possible. Remain upbeat yet direct with a friend. Once this person becomes grounded, relating becomes easier. Tonight, you might feel pulled in different directions. So there you go, Carrie. Jerry Wallace coming out of SLC. What's up, Jer? Thanks for tuning in. Scorpio coming at you. 4-star day, Jer. If you can't make a decision just yet, let it go for now. In a few days, revisit the issue and see if your perspective has changed. You might be ready to make a choice at that point. Know that this is a particularly lucky year for you, Jerry. And tonight, accept a loved one's suggestion or don't. It's just the scopes. I don't know if it's true. April Boso looking for Taurus. April, I already read that one. You and I both bulls in the china shop of modern existence. So there you go. Greg L. Cheney looking for a tarot card reading. Let me see what I can do for you, Greg. I'm going for it. I don't know if it's going to work. I've never done it fun. Okay. Shuffle again. We're shuffling. Here you go, Jay. Here you go, Gregory. 6 cards. 1, 2. Hold on. I'm really thinking about it here. 3, 4, 5, 6. Here you go, Greg. The High Priestess, the Tower, the Chariot, the Wheel of Fortune, the Star, and Judgment. I don't have time to read all those, but there you go. If you really wanted a tarot card reading, there it is, brother. Laid it on you. Again, the High Priestess, the Tower, the Chariot, the Wheel of Fortune, the Star, and Judgment. So, there you go. Mark Perrotta looking for Cancer. 4-star day for you, sir. Ask for more space in order to take the kind of stand you would like to. The problems that come up for you could stem from overindulgence. I already read this one for David, so hopefully you caught it. There it is again, up on the screen. Josh Andres looking for Leo. 5-star day, Josh. You want to celebrate the arrival of spring. Make a new list of your goals and resolutions. Speak with a partner or a loved one to see if he or she can get behind the same wish list. Tonight, listen to what others would like to have happen over the next few months. Pater Coat looking for Cancer. There it is, brother. Hopefully you caught that. Geo Folds looking for Leo. I just read that one. Still on the screen. Gretchen Law, thank you for tuning in, Gretchen. Sagittarius, 5-star day. To solve a problem quickly, become more aware of it. Detach and consider others' points of view. Get above the issue as if you were not involved. At the same time, enjoy the presence of spring. You connect on a deep level with this season. Tonight, as the moment guides you. There you go. Even if the scopes aren't right, they do give you some good advice once in a while, like detaching and considering others' points of view. Always a good thing to do. Libra, for Scott Watson, coming at you, 3-star day. You enter spring with fond memories that you share with many people. At the 6-month mark from your birthday, the planets will present you with their report card. Note any areas that need to be updated or transformed. Be willing to take action. And tonight, Scott, get into the celebration. Carlito with a good comment there. Agreed. I think he's talking about going live at a regular time. I only catch the show when I happen to scroll by. I got Facebook jailed after sharing the video the other day. Not sure if it was this or other things, mostly anti-gun control stuff. Either way, censorship is targeting us. Thanks for that thoughtful comment there, Carlito. I appreciate that. Frankie Lynn, Capricorn. Frankie, I saw your message earlier. I'll get back to you today. But I was getting ready for the show when it came in. 4-star day for you, Frankie. Look at what is happening around you. Many people seem more upbeat. You might be able to make a switch or a change without encountering a hassle. Sometime in the evening, your imagination seems to come to life. Use this creative period well. And tonight, you're in the limelight, Frankie. Carrie Mark laughing. Is that the tarot card reading? Patricia Gardner chiming in, consider the hat thing. People would watch to see the hats. That's a good point. That's why I kind of wear a funny hat today. I had this hat when I was sailing around in Central America, and still do. Daniel Bouchard looking for Aquarius, 4-star day. Feel relieved that good news is heading your way. You become upbeat with the simple knowledge of a change of seasons. You will be more grounded later in the day. A discussion around your home could make waves. Choose your words with care. Always a good suggestion. And tonight, Daniel, out and about. Mark Parada, thank you, buddy. Appreciate you tuning in. Greg, I'm glad you liked that that tarot reading there. Nicole Adams looking for Pisces. Coming at you, Nicole. 4-star day. Stay sensitive to your finances. You might want to make a major purchase in the near future. Understand the limits of your budget. Consider making a commitment to build up your income. Easier said than done. Be aware of what someone you care about is asking for. And tonight, Nicole, dinner for 2. Let's see. We got Cypress. Asim looking for Pisces. Cypress, I just read that, so hopefully got that. Josh Andres, thank you. Alexander Gamp says Yoda Putin. I don't know what that means. Gretchen Lott, you're welcome. Scott Watson, thank you. Know the horoscope. Carrie Mark telling me to smile. All right, I'll smile. Let's see what Greg Cheney's asking what happened to your set behind you, moving out. No, Greg, I'm actually working on a project here. I have well, it's a long story, but basically I had a climbing wall built in here. That was a pretty poor design, so I pulled that out, like an indoor rock climbing training gym. Move that to a different location, and then I'm replacing what was the climbing wall wood in here with some lighter weight plywood and building a bedroom back there that is electromagnetically shielded. Because like a lot of people, I'm concerned about the smart meters, the cell towers, the Wi-Fi, the 5G, the Gwen towers, and all that stuff. And I want to experiment on myself to see if I sleep better, have more vivid dreams, feel more rested, feel healthier, feel more awake and aware, and in operating at my full potential if I try to limit my exposure to unnatural and potentially dangerous electromagnetic fields even more than I do already. So that's what I'm working on. You'll see the set evolving as we move on here. I'll zoom out there. You can see what I'm working on. So yeah, not just a pretty face, not just a newsreader, but I also know how to swing a hammer and try to practice what I preach. So April Bo says we should all send Max a unique hat to show our appreciation. We could do that. You could do that if you want to. Don't forget the tinfoil. I got a tinfoil hat too. I can throw that one on anytime you want. Randy Pooh chiming in, get grounded. Right. Really good point. I can't stress it enough. This interview, Claudia Stauber and Elana Freeland, highly recommend people check this one out. Really a thought-provoking interview. So, I've been experimenting with this stuff for a while. I've got like some of the electromagnetically shielding. Let's see what I got here. Like this sort of stuff. This is like a copper infused fabric, stuff like this. I've got some silver infused. I've got some stainless steel infused fabrics. I kind of got samples from various things, and time to get that going again. Greg L. Cheney says, can't wait to see your results. Yeah, I'll give you guys a tour of that when it's done, and it'll be in the background there. It's kind of gonna look like one of those like mosquito net things. But the kicker with that is like making sure it grounds out properly, and it's built to basically be like a Faraday cage for humans. I'll let you know how it goes. I've experimented with that a bit in the past. And frankly, for years, my philosophy has been to spend as much time as I can outside and away from the computer, away from cell service as possible. I'd rather go out into the woods and sit on a mountaintop and read an enlightening book than sit in front of the computer and try to make sense of the world. But I do that because I like hanging out with all of you, and because it's, I don't know, it's what I do. But, if you don't see me, odds are I'm out enjoying nature, whether I'm backcountry skiing or climbing mountains or down surfing the river at the Lunch Counter Rapid or traveling around the West, trying to get off the grid to the best of my abilities. And again, taking it all back to where we began this show today. Tonight, if you want a good example, somebody who was a true pioneer when it comes to being a dirtbag, head on out to the Pink Garter Theater here in Jackson, Wyoming. Well, up north in Jackson. I'm in Alpine because it's so darn expensive to live in Jackson. But do head out to the Pink Garter Theater tonight, 7 p.m., to check out Dirtbag, The Legend of Fred Beckey movie tonight. Should be a great, great movie. Fred Beckey is the original American dirtbag mountaineer. It's the groundbreaking life story of this rebel athlete who inspired generations of climbers with his monumental first ascents and eloquent books. It's told for the first time in this exclusive documentary film. So check that one out. Fred Beckey, pretty solid dude. And he definitely talked the talk, walked the walk when it came to getting off the grid, following your passions, writing great books, turning a lot of people on to the outdoors, and pioneering all these first ascents all over the United States, North America, and the world. So I'll see you tonight at the show if you choose to come out. If not, I think this is a movie worth paying to see, I think. So now you know. And on that note, your boy Mog signing off for now here at Wake Up Wyoming. Thank you so very much for tuning in. If you want to support my work, you can head on over to patreon.com/Max Mogren and become one of my patrons. I've got 21 patrons ponying up $379 per month, which I am greatly appreciative for. Thank you all so very much for that. I'd like to get that number up to about $1,000 a month, but you know what? I'm willing to live cheap in order to keep doing what I do, bringing the news to you, staying off the grid to the best of my ability, building an experimental bedroom that is electromagnetically shielded, which is arguably very important in the world today, and so on and so forth. On that note, I'm out. Y'all stay awake, stay aware, try to stay optimistic, take care of yourselves and the ones you love, and keep fighting for the truth, because we are winning this thing. In fact, if they didn't impose blatant censorship of news outlets like this, we would be crushing the mainstream media. And we already are, and especially because people like you care enough to share videos like this. So thank you. I'm out. One love.